Once upon a time, there was a boy. The boy's name was Mark. He was born in the south side of Chicago to a mom and dad who weren't exactly expecting a baby. Fast forward 12 years later. Mark was quiet but also very smart. His favorite class in school when he was able to go was math. Algebra and geometry were his thing. When he wasn't doing homework or necessarily felt like doing it, he was playing Call of Duty on his Xbox. He was ranked in the top 1,000 in the nation, showing just how much time he put into this. Mark remembers one time watching an exclusive interview on the History Channel with his parents. Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman was talking about the Army and post-events and present events that had impacted his men. The man said something to the extent of video games are in fact murder simulators. Since his parents could care less what he watches and he was used to being isolated by his parents more than intimately close with them, he didn't listen to what this gentleman was saying. It didn't affect his video game playing. His parents were drug lords living in the south side of Chicago. Mark had heard that this was the fifth guy his mom had married, and each one just kept on progressively getting worse. Mark therefore didn't have a good environment to grow up in. Vygotsky's social development theory states that a good community is essential to one's social development, and this is why Mark begins to slope downhill. Hence, Mark didn't have a good social life. He hated most of his classmates and never wanted to talk with them. Before he knew it, algebra and geometry were the last thing on his mind. Cocaine and booze consumed his everyday thoughts. Before he knew it, he became friends with the roughest guys in the neighborhood. Let's just say profanities rung in his ear every second of every day. Anyways, Mark then started to call his family the 401, the local gang in the area. They accepted him, acknowledged him, made him feel like he was part of a family. Every day he hung out with them and hardly ever saw his real parents. One day, Mark came home from the streets to find his mom and dad in a huge argument. This wasn't the first intense argument that they had ever had. His mom had several bruises and cuts along her legs, face, and arms from his dad beating her on several different occasions. This time seemed different. The atmosphere was even more intense. As he was about to ask what was going on, his dad grabbed a knife from the table nearby and stabbed his mom in the chest. She collapsed to the ground, and his dad ran past Mark, not even recognizing that he was there. That night, as his mom lay in the hospital, Mark became infuriated and frustrated at his dad. Why would he do something like this? The next day, Mark and the 401 were out on the streets waiting for their supplier to come by with a load of drugs needed for that week. Once the supplier came, he informed the 401 that he didn't have the drugs for them because the 401 wasn't paying the full price. Mark, with his emotions at full swing, took out his pistol that the gang required he carry with him and shot the supplier right in the head. Running intensely, Mark and the rest of the gang ran into a nearby abandoned building. Once inside, the other members started yelling at Mark for what he had done. They were telling him that he was stupid, that he made a huge mess, but also how that this is the only way you can deal with important and dangerous people like that. They said if he didn't do that, they probably would have kicked him out of the gang. Kohlberg describes this in his idea of conventional morality. Mark wanted and needed to live up to the social norm of his gang, otherwise he could have lost his family. Mark was utterly confused. If someone displeased you, why wouldn't you get back at them for doing it? Of course Mark did the right thing. Obviously shooting him wasn't such a bad thing. All Mark knows how to do in his life is deal with conflict with violence. He says that this is one of his better morals in his life. Plus he knows that if he wouldn't have done something, they told him he possibly could be kicked out of the gang. Mark just shrugged it off, knowing that his choice was obviously the best choice. The next day, Mark was eating breakfast at the table when a knock came on the door. He got up and opened the door, standing face to face with a deputy sheriff. The sheriff came into the home and, knowing what Mark had done, demanded to see the gun. Mark, not being good in these situations, scrambled for his gun that he had stashed in the nearby cupboard, knowing his parents would never find it. Surveying the gun, the officer demanded to see Mark's parents. His mom came down from upstairs, looking as if she had taken yet another beating from his dad. The officer and Mark's mom exchanged some words as Mark was demanded to leave the room. A while later, Mark was informed that he would either have to spend 10 plus years in juvenile detention or go to Miami, Florida, where he would be put up for foster care and have to go to the Youth Crime Watch of America to change his life. Leaving his family seemed like the best decision. Therefore, the next week, he packed up and went down to Miami. He was put in a foster home near the base of YCWA. He went to the nearby public school and dedicated most of his time to help reduce crime and drug use in his school and the surrounding neighborhood. Mark then began to transform his life and the world one little community at a time.